Shalom to you all. It's that special week, the special study. It is Parashat BeShalah, the study of the splitting of the Red Sea and so many other amazing miracles that all of them are basically great symbols for every human's mission, spiritual work on his daily life. So what is the story that we're talking about? We are in Parashat BeShalah, which is in the book of Exodus, Shemot, and we can find it in the book of Exodus, chapter 13, verse 17. Vahi BeShalach Paro et ha'am. And when Pharaoh sent the nation out, okay? And the name of the word parasha is BeShalah, while he was sending them. Okay, now why is that the name of the parasha? What's its significance? Why it is so important? So we have learned in the previous classes, starting the book of Shemot, Exodus, that the whole story of the Exodus is, yes, there was a great episode in the history of humanity that is called the Exodus. However, the sages are teaching us that we have to, every generation, every one of us, each one of us has to see one himself or herself going through the same thing all over again. Why? Because during the reading of these parashot, there is a kind of cosmic opening that allows each one of us to go through his own Exodus. And what's the Exodus? The simple level, we are talking about those parashot that describe, like Parashat Shemot, the beginning of the book of Exodus, the enslavement of the Israelites, and that is correlated to the real, true enslavement of every human being. The soul is, in this world, enslaved to the forces of the body. We can see only what the body allows us, which is very, very nothing relatively to all the information around us and within us. We can hear only what our ears can allow us. We can think only about what the five senses bring into our system, our mind. And what we learn about computers is also accurate about the human thinking. Garbage in, garbage out. If you feed yourself with limited, biased information and knowledge, of course that your brain is going to produce only crooked resolutions about what to do in any time. However, that's not only the only problem. The rest of there's another problem, which is called, in the body, we have also the desire to receive for oneself alone. And as long as we are subjugated to the body's desires, needs, thoughts, and feelings, emotions, we are in our own Egypt, a narrow place. Egypt in Hebrew means a narrow place. And Pharaoh, among other things, is hafra, disturbance. So all of those emotions, they are called the noise by Professor Daniel Kahneman. They called that he got, I reminded again and again, he got a Nobel Prize for economy because he proved that people do not make major decisions in their lives based on analytical logic. They do it from their guts. And now he just came up with another book called Noise, that all of the emotions that we have, most of them, are really a big noise that does not allow us to see the picture in front of us. And we know it very well. Each one of us knows it very well when it comes to decisions about which house to buy, when to buy, which car to buy, when to buy, getting married, which party to vote or which president to vote to, we can see that not everybody think like us. And many times we make a decision, and then 2 days later, 2 months later, 20 years later, we realize how incorrect was our decision, because it was muffled with so much noise of so many emotions that have nothing to do with our true, real interest. So the whole process of the Exodus, from the Parashat Shemot, from the beginning of the book of Exodus, till we read about Moses coming down with the tablets, the second tablets, with freedom on the tablets. When we have that in mind, we have to understand that we are in a process of redeeming our own self from all the hafra'ah. Pharaoh is hafra'ah, all the noise that does not allow us to see what is real, what is true, what is really serving our true, real interest. Okay, so we learned in the past weeks about the 10 plagues. And we understand that the 10 plagues, they plagued whoever associated themselves in Egypt, and that applies to each one of us, whoever associate themselves with the body. And the question is very simple. When we feel pain, when we feel cravings, desires, emotions of achievement and ambition, who do we side with? Do we side with the body consciousness, which is basically the desire to receive for oneself alone, or do we go with the soul? How can we tell the difference between the voice of our soul and the voice of our body? And remember, the body does not last. When we die, we don't take our body to the afterlife. So what do we have the body for? The body is there, pre-planned. It's there in order to give us the ability to face the challenge, overcome the challenge, and by this, earn, acquire, merit the supreme light that the Creator wants to share with each one of us. So, therefore, says Rabbi Isaac Luria, the Arizal, en tikun ela beguf. You cannot achieve any correction, any true achievement, unless you are in a physical body. Why? Because the body gives you the blindness, the death, which means you cannot see, you cannot hear, you cannot think, you have a lot of noise. When you overcome all of that noise and you connect to the true sound of the soul, now the enlightenment you gain is now yours. In order to achieve that enlightenment, the nation of Israel in Egypt, they had to go through the 10 plagues. The plagues many times hurt the Israelites the same time as it hurt Egypt. Why? Because as the commentators teach us, the plagues were hurting the body's aspect. Now, the Israelites were slaves. Many of them associated themselves with the religion, or basically more with the state of mind of Egypt, selfishness. You know, even today, a person can think he's very spiritual, but then he's very envious with his neighbor who has all kinds of accessories, cars, whatever, physical stuff that he does not have. Okay? And then you even think that he's so successful because he has those things. Okay? Which means you think you're spiritual, but really you're not. Why? If you think the accessories, the money, that is the symbol of success, this is the real success, you really can't see the picture. It doesn't mean you're supposed to be poor. But the question is, can you see a happy person when you see them? Can you see a disturbed person when you see them? Or do you look at the outside and you can't see what's inside? And in order to achieve that, you need to acquire a real sense of spiritual focusing, and you need to know how to lower the noise within. And that needs a lifetime training. Now, plaguing the body, hurting the body, it doesn't mean destroying the body, but it means bringing the body to a place that what we read in Exodus 13:17, the verse in front of us, BeShalah, and it was when Pharaoh was sending the people away. It doesn't say he let them go. He sent them away. How come he sent them away? 10 plagues ago, he did not want to send them anywhere. Okay, and the answer is, when the body is plagued, which means when our body, I'm talking right now, you have always to look first inwardly. When we associate ourselves with the ongoing method and goal system that we're here in this world not to feed the body desires, especially the selfish desires. When we get the commitment to lower the body's selfishness and release by that the soul, when the body is being harnessed enough, plagued enough, finally, we will arrive to a place of freedom. And that freedom is when the body sends the soul to freedom. That is what we read over here. It happened only after the 10th plague. The 10th plague were just 10 steps of, like, it's a kind of a formula that you need to go through 10 steps. And if you read Rabbi Isaac Luria's teachings and the Rashash, Rabbi Sharabi, all of these great Kabbalists, they show us how each plague is basically, with the name of the plague and all what's around it, it's basically a different manifestation of the names of God that came into the dark side, which is symbolized here by Pharaoh in Egypt. And when those letters, those names come into the dark body and negative consciousness, it's very uncomfortable. It feels like a plague, okay? So, but that was, as we call today, New Age medicine, healing crisis, okay? Somebody was eating all what is wrong. You know, everybody knows what I'm talking about. Smoking cigarettes, eating a lot of junk food and stuff like this. And then you abruptly decide to eat healthy. Okay, you should feel healthy in the morning and you don't smoke again. Okay, no. Now the body is starting to feel tortured because the body is addicted to all of these poisons. So getting ourselves into withdrawal, we know it's a very, very uncomfortable event, okay, that can take a long time. Getting out of our poisoning system of thinking, of thought, and belief systems, this is even longer and much more painful. Who is in pain? The soul that is getting out of freedom, or the body that is being basically plagued? But the weaker the body becomes, the stronger the soul and its voice becomes also. Okay? So we need to go through the 10th plague in order to reach the enlightenment that the Israelites experienced in Egypt on that night of the plague of the firstborn. The way the Zohar describes it, the way other Kabbalists describe it, the light that has been revealed on that night was so immense, so intense, that was the only thing that brought Pharaoh to release the people. What does it mean? I'll give you an example. Let's say we all have moments of depression, moments of negative thinking, that we are worried, that we are into all kinds of dark state of mind that is not making us wiser, healthier, stronger by anything, or closer to God. Okay? If you fight it, and when you fight it by singing, dancing, meditating, reading, learning, studying, doing charity, doing stuff for others, everything you do just to focus on connecting to anything that will enlighten you. As you do that, you'll have all the time the noise of saying, why should you do it? Why are you going to do it? What do you need it for? Would they say thank you? It doesn't work, whatever, all kinds of terrible thoughts that basically try to stop you from making the effort. But if you focus on that, and you focus on connecting to your enlightenment, and you do not leave, you just go on focusing, you can go through 15 very hard minutes, 15 hours, 15 days. But there's a time that the body lets go. And when the body lets go and says, don't plague me anymore, just go, do whatever you want. That's BeShalah Parota. That's when Pharaoh sends the people away to freedom. Leave me alone, stop beating me up. The result was such an enlightenment of basically all of the people that were on the side of enlightenment on that night of the plague of the firstborn. They saw the world the way it really is supposed to be. So everybody was in a level of high, not just an artificial high. That was a high of being totally free from all of that noise, that of emotional thoughts, selfish thoughts, aggravation, thinking about the past, all of that stuff. There was such an amazing spiritual awakening. But what did the Israelites do for that? Nothing. That was a gift given from above. So the Israelites can go to freedom and lead the way for the rest of humanity. That was part of the system. That was part of the plan. Okay? So when Pharaoh is sending the people, it's the same thing for us. When we consistently focus on fighting our body consciousness, our selfishness, after the time of withdrawal, there will be a moment of suddenly all of that noise will stop, and then we see the light. That is the moment of enlightenment, in which you reach that place of such a high that you look backwards and you say, wow, where was I? What I was thinking to myself, I was really a slave. This is what we're talking about. It's a message for each one of us. Enlightenment is not far away from us. But in order to reach enlightenment, we need to overcome all 10 levels of Pharaoh and Egypt. All 10 levels of selfishness, bodily desires that are selfish, all of that stuff that is basically the bondage that means being part of a body and being part of a civilization that adorns the body and ignores the existence of the soul and whatever is connected to the soul. And the game is still on. It's like the war is still on. So how we go there? Then the Zohar says something very important to add to what we just said. As the Israelites are leaving Egypt, they go through a withdrawal process. Okay, I'm reading in the Zohar, Parashat BeShalah, verse 26. 25. תחזי, כד נפקו ישראל ממצרים, וכיון הווה תביר בגביו, והבו שמעין אינון תושבחן, ולה יכלין למחדי. ובשעתה דחולו אוכלוסין ורתיחין נפקו בשחיטה, כולו ערים ותושבחן ושירין קמי קודשא בריחו. ויתאר קודשא בריחו וכיון לישראל. והבו שמעין אינון תושבחן, וקאים וכיון בגביו דלה פרחן. When, as the Israelites are leaving Egypt, their spirit was broken. Okay, what does it mean they were broken? We'll see later. They were going through withdrawal because the 10 plagues plagued the Egypt and allowed them to reach such a level of enlightenment and total freedom on the night of the plague of the firstborn. Okay, that is the only way a nation of slaves for centuries was ready to get up and leave straight into the desert. You know, slaves are not so willing to be released, if you notice that. You know, somebody is bedridden, so many diseases, so many medications, and then you come to a person like this and say there's a different system. It's with changing your diet, it's with spiritual meditation and so on, but it works, and I bring you so many witnesses that simply did it. And you would think that the person that is sick will be so excited. Wow, it's amazing, let me start right now. And sometimes it happens, but most of the times you see, no, I just believe the doctors, and I continue taking the same medication, and you're just like, what? How come you don't see that whatever you're going through, if you continue to do what you used to do, you continue to get what you used to get, and you see how people refuse to be redeemed. They refuse to really do something that common sense is saying. If you do that and you change your lifestyle, you will be much healthier. Okay, that is not, it's common knowledge right now. And so many people don't want to listen to that. How come? Yet that's called being a slave. When the Israelites are leaving Egypt, says the Zohar, their spirit was broken. They were broken into pieces. Why? First, they were redeemed. They had this like high, but you know what? After you go into that high and you leave your old world, in the beginning you have the withdrawal, and that's the body's broken. And what happens, says the Zohar, and they will listen praises and songs of armies of angels that were around them as they are leaving Egypt. It says in the Torah that all the armies of God left Egypt, but the Israelites could not be happy. When they left Egypt, all the armies of the angels and the chariots of the Shekhinah left together with the nation of Israel. All of them were singing and praising the God. And then little by little, the Israelites were listening to the praises. And little by little, they started to get better. Every hour as they're leaving Egypt. We're talking about the first few days. The Zohar continues on verse 26. Somebody who was a slave. He was a slave in a very terrible place. Oh, not just that they enslaved, they also committed the genocide, right? They also killed the children and stuff like this. When you're in a place like this, you have one thing in your mind: surviving. Can't think. You're not supposed to think because you can't afford it. But the moment the yoke is gone, you start to think about what you've gone through. You are in what they call today in a post-trauma. You're broken because then you realize what you went through, and how deep was the abuse. So they were broken. So the Israelites leaving Egypt, they taste the taste of death. We went through all of that and we are still alive. And God healed them. As it says, and God is walking in front of them day and night. And all the roads, says the Zohar, were bringing up smells of healing. And those smells got into their bodies and they were healed. And from the voice of the praises, they were happy finally, and little by little they got relaxed. That was the first 6 days were totally into healing from the pain, because when you leave and you're just now free, you're not really free. You're still a slave of the fears, the pain that inflicted you all of these years before. Okay, so the same thing over here. Now let's bring it down to our world. The fact that somebody is redeemed, it does not mean it's going to be comfortable. It doesn't work this way. No, it's not. And we have to understand, because our brains, our minds, our hearts, we are since our childhood, we associate our body, needs, desires, and voice as the me. I am what I am. Remember that. On the other hand, the other side, the side of the soul, it will take us a long time to listen to our soul. And there's a price. The price is to disassociate from the voice of the body. And the voice of the body, we associate with it all the time as the me, the real true me. And it's not, it's a fake. It's a fake me, okay? So the voices of anger, envy, all of those emotions, as Professor Kahneman is calling it, that's noise. It's not me. Can you imagine when this is broken, till you get let go of it and you find your true voice? That's not easy, and you have to be patient with it. Now, let's continue with the Zohar. Verse 30, ויסב אלוהים את העם דרך המדבר ים סוף, לתקנה ארכה לארתרי. רבי יהודה אמר, מה ישנה כדאבו ישראל במצרים, וכתיב שלח את עמי. Okay, so what was the whole thing that it says in the Torah itself? The next verse, we read verse 17. Now we're in verse 18. ויסב אלוהים את העם דרך המדבר. And God took the people around in a detour through the desert, through the Red Sea. Okay. Take the map of the Middle East, especially the coast of the Mediterranean with Israel. Today is Israel and Egypt. And you see the Israelites, they lived in Goshen. Goshen was around the delta of Egypt, of the Nile. That's the north of Egypt. Now, you will see that if you want to go from Egypt to Israel, you simply must follow the coastline. And after 3 days walk, you will be already around Gaza. Okay? If you do not want to fight with the Philistines who were living at that time in Gaza, they were the invaders that tried to invade to Egypt, but then finally they settled on the coastal plain north of Egypt. Okay, so you can go, so instead of continuing north to Gaza, you go from Egypt and you continue straight to BeShalah, and then up, and you are in the Holy Land. Okay, but so you look at the map, where is the Red Sea? And you see the Red Sea is totally on the other direction. It, instead of going east, it's going south. Okay, why did they have to go south? Okay, because, and the answer is, they had to go south, says Rabbi Ashlag, in order to split the Red Sea. Okay? To split the Red Sea, because the splitting of the Red Sea was a necessity on the journey to freedom. How? But it's not on the way. That's exactly, your brain tells you what's the right way, but there's another right way. And only when you go through through these stages and you simply gain what you need to gain from every stage in your life, then you realize that it looked like a detour, but you really needed to go through that experience in order to achieve what you needed to achieve. And what was there to achieve? So we're going right now to in chapter 14, verse 10. Ufaro hikriv, and Pharaoh brought closer. It's not my mistake. That's the way it's written. It doesn't say, and Pharaoh came close, which means 6 days the Israelites are walking in the desert, going through this healing of their post-trauma. Suddenly, Pharaoh realizes that the Israelites are left and there's no slaves anymore. And who's going to build whatever they were building? And Pharaoh is changing his mind. And you're asking yourself, why? He didn't remember the 10 plagues. He didn't remember the disaster that fell upon the Egyptians. The empire is finished, and you still want to continue? That's what we see so many times in our lives. How many times we go through a plague, which means we're making mistakes. We are totally into our selfish behavior. We totally into a non-spiritual state of mind. We insist that we are right. We blame the whole world. And then we realize we made a terrible mistake. We make repentance. We swear to ourselves. We vow that we'll never do it again. And when things are easier, we do it again. So we're not talking about the intelligence of that guy who was Pharaoh, the king of Egypt at that time. We're talking about ourselves. You can really get plagued, burned, fried, beaten up because of our stupidity, and then we do the same thing all over again. Why? Because the involvement and the liftoff was not completed yet. It needed 6 more weeks. Until we're really doing it, how do we know that we really did it? That we don't have the passion, the desire, the need to repeat the same mistakes. We look at it as like, that was somebody else. How could I do it? Okay, when we become a new person that has no need and desire anymore for the same things, that is when we know it's done. That did not happen yet. And therefore, Pharaoh is coming after the Israelites. First of all, he wants to take revenge. Second, the Israelites took the treasures of Egypt with them, a lot of them. And there's a lot, and and the ego. How could they leave free so easily? So let's go again to Ufaro hikriv. Why does it say, and Pharaoh brought closer? And Rashi, the great commentator from the 11th century, says, Hayalo lichtov Pharaoh karav. It should have been said, and Pharaoh came closer. Mao hikriv, what does it mean brought closer? And the answer is, the Zohar is saying, he brought the Israelites closer to their Father in heaven. They got upset, they were busy healing, and now they realize the story is not over. The They're still having that pharaonic desires that are not totally healed. Vayumo, they were very much afraid. Vayitzaku bnei Yisrael el Hashem. And the nation of Israel, the children of Israel, are yelling to God. That's Exodus 14, verse 10. Says the Mechilta, the Rabbi Ishmael, that Rashi also reminded. What does it mean, Vayitzaku bnei Yisrael Hashem? What does it mean that the Israelites started to yell to God? And it says in Mechilta, the Rabbi Ishmael, Miyad tafsu lahem umanut avotam. Immediately, in the time of trouble, in the time of stress, now they were already out of Egypt, because in Egypt they couldn't do that. They were too busy to feel victims. They were too busy to feel slaves, which means I don't deserve it. In order for a slave to survive under an abusive owner, you need to have what a human feel that is called in modern psychology the Stockholm Syndrome. You start to justify the person that abuses you, because if you'll be rebellious, you'll be punished severely. So you need to achieve submission. And total submission is called the Stockholm Syndrome, which means you are under abuse. Somebody took away your freedom, everything that is important for you, your honor, everything that is yours, and you even obey and admire your oppressor. Okay? So they couldn't. So when Pharaoh is the oppressor and you have the Stockholm Syndrome, you cannot pray to God because you already have one God, the Egyptians. Now they healed enough and something awakened that was dormant for centuries. Miyad tafsu lahem umanut avotam. Immediately, when they were threatened, they came back to the skill of their fathers. Umanut Avraham, Yitzchak, VaYaakov. The skill of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What does it say about Avraham? Avraham omer, Beit El miyam v'ayim miken nevayim v'avsham mizbeach v'ikra b'shem Hashem. Genesis 12, Abraham was calling in the name of God. Abraham was praying to God. His main skill was to pray to God, and he instilled that prayer that is connected to Chesed, which is connected to the morning prayer. About Yitzchak, Omer vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basadeh. Genesis 24, it says, and Isaac went out to the field. That was to pray, and he instilled or created what we know as the prayer of the afternoon prayer. And sicha el tefillah, that this is prayer. BeYaakov ma hu omer? What does it say about Yaakov? ויפגע במקום וילם שם כי באה השמש אין פגיעה לתפילה. That about Genesis 28. And when Jacob hits the place, Temple Mount, the Holy of Holies, the stone, the holy stone, where he slept on and had the dream of the ladder, that was a prayer also. So these are also, what happened to Israel, to the Israelites? Now they were stressed, they started to pray. Was the first time they pray as a nation. Basically, this is the minute that Pharaoh brings them closely to God. Remember, when you pray, it's not always that you get what you want, what you think you want. Some people pray for soulmate, some people pray for money, some people pray for health, and they say, you know, I prayed and I didn't get what I wanted. And the answer is, what do you really want? And when you go deep inside yourself, when you want to get married, somebody who's single, or you want the soulmate relationships, do you want the physical relationship, or you want the fulfillment that you can achieve through that? And this fulfillment is connection to the light of God. When you want any other kind of success, it's all about the fulfillment, which means every time you pray, says Rabbi Ashlag, the founder of the Kabbalah movement in the 20th century, every time you pray, even though you don't get on a physical plane whatever you asked for, but you get rewarded, because if you pray from the depth of your heart, you're getting closer to God. And now you can understand why you've been inflicted with a plague of being lonely, being poor, being sick, whatever. All of these, they made you pray. And when you pray, you get closer to God. And that is the purpose. That is the goal, because that's a real thing we need. Okay? Everything else comes and goes. That is really an achievement that stays forever. So let's continue. As a result, so we understand that the whole thing of splitting the Red Sea, going, because that was the sixth day. If they went eastwards towards the Holy Land, they will be in BeShalah in 3 days. It's over. Pharaoh is already, remember, BeShalah and the whole promised land was under Egyptian control at that time. Okay? So it's not that simple. But what is very important to understand, Pharaoh and Pharaoh's change of heart and his horrible change of heart that basically brought the Israelites into the verge of distinction and extinction. Okay, extinction. That was almost a story. But that was in order for the Israelites' first time in history, praying to God as a nation. This is, according to my opinion, it's like that's when they step on the history as a nation. Till that time, they are either slaves in Egypt or a bunch of refugees running away from their oppressor. Now, when they pray, they step up. And what is the result? The result is, the Zohar says, that's reading in the Zohar verse of BeShalah, verse 75. As Pharaoh came close to make war with Israel, to wage war with Israel, but God at that moment did not want the nation of Israel to do anything from below. He wanted to have an awakening from above. But then it says something very weird. Because the fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they already created that awakening from above. And the merit was there for the children. So in order to save them. But we just said, the nation of Israel, they prayed because they connected to their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And now God doesn't want it? That's a secret. Okay? What is the secret over here? Verse 180. Kedin ktiv, vayomer Adonai el Moshe ma titzak elai. The answers, God's answer, when everybody is yelling, okay, and everybody is praying, and then God is saying, I'm talking about Exodus 14, verse 15. God says to Moses, what are you yelling at me? Daber bnei Israel v'isau, speak to the children of Israel, let them travel forward. Vetana, besifra ditzniuta, and it says in the book that is, it's a part of the Zohar that is called Sifra ditzniuta. Elai, what are you yelling? And God and Youdkevitch says to Moses, what are you yelling at me? Specifically at me. Be'atika talia kola. Right now, you need to connect to that place, to that, I won't say, it's a spiritual awareness, spiritual level that is called Atika. Now everything depends on Atika. Beishata, Itgale Atika Kadisha. At that moment, the Atika Kadisha has been revealed. What is Atika? When we study about the Sefirot, we learn that there are 10 Sefirot, but it's a little bit more sophisticated because the Sefirot are divided inside them. Each Sephirah is divided also to subdivisions of 10 Sefirot. But the highest Sephirah of them all, the most powerful of them all, is the Keter, the supreme Keter, which is somehow translated as a crown, but it's the Keter. Keter means the seed of all seeds, the source of all sources, the cause of all causes. But inside the Keter, there is a subdivision. And the first subdivision, the most important, is called a spark of the Creator. And that spark is called Atik, Atika, Kadisha, the holy Atik. What's Atik? You know, in English, you have the word antique. It's coming from there. What is antique? Something really ancient, really from back before. But in Kabbalistic terms, back before means the seed of everything. And the seed of everything is the endless light. And when the endless light, something of it is being removed and comes down into the emanations, it's called atik, which in Hebrew means, leha'atik means to cut and paste. But it's not cut and paste, it's really copy and paste. Because the endless stays the endless. But something of the endless comes in. Something of the endless, which is full of endless light, love, unconditionally. We cannot understand it because we're finite. But some of it it's copy-pasted into the Keter. When it's coming into the Keter, it gives life to the whole tree of life system. It's also called Ra'ava de Ravim. The desire for all desires, but it's not a desire of people. When somebody desires something, it means he lacks something, he wants something. When God desires something, he's giving something because we desire what the Creator wants to give us. That's how we are designed. So here we're talking about the sharing element from the endless that is emanating into the creation. The first step is called Atika Kadisha, the holy Atik. Okay? How is that connected? And why it says, and with this, everything is being illuminated. Okay? How is that connected? So, Rabbi explains to us, when God says to Moses, do not yell at me, we learn in the book, Sifra Tzniuta, at me is exactly because Youdkevitch, God, Youdkevitch, that frequency is the level of Zeranpin. It's called Hanagata Mishpat. It's the way the universe is being run with the cause and effect system. You do evil, evil comes at you till you correct it and sweeten it. And you need to work and earn everything. This is Mid Anagata Mishpat. This is the system of judgment, which means cause and effect. But everything is coming really from Atik, from that, because that is the meaning of the real meaning of the word Keter, the meaning of lechater, to surround, to cause. What is the cause of everything we go through? Finally, we have to arrive, we have no choice about it, into what the Creator wants to give us, which is His endless light. In that moment, that the people of Israel awakened the desire from below by starting to pray, they made the first step. But now comes another step. It's a step that you have to go beyond fairness, the rules, because you have to reach, you need to connect to the revelation of Atika Kadisha, which is the endless giving light of the Creator, the endless shining of everything. And Rabbi Ashlag explains, we know that the Egyptians' wisdom, they were from the left side. They were not fake. The Egyptians were a face of reality. And to they had a source in their holy system, the Egyptians. You know, all of their art and wisdom, it was a true force, true power. How did they build that powerful civilization? Okay, because they knew how to connect to upper worlds. But that was on the dark side. However, says Rabbi Ashlag, you still, in order to finish that stage of the Egyptians' rule over that area of the world, you needed to eliminate their source in holiness. Another thing you have to remember, without the Egyptians enslaving the Israelites, going through the 10 plagues, there won't be Mount Sinai revelation. That was the need. So everything was in place. And you cannot remove that system of Egypt, the power of the desire to receive for oneself alone. You cannot do that unless you use the big light of Atika Kadisha, which is above where the Egyptians were connected to. וזה שכתוב שזה רנפין, אמר, מה תצעק אליי? בעתיקה טליה קולה. It all depended in Atika, that its great light can remove the seed, the source of the Egyptian power. Because the light of Atika was so strong, it's like the light of a torch relatively to the light of a candle. The light of the candle is just doesn't stop existing. Because the light of Atika is the light of everything. Listen to that carefully. In everything, in that light, they are being annulled. For that moment, the power of Egypt has been annulled. But there's another thing that was being annulled. When we read the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of formation, Mishnah Aleph, chapter 8, it says, 10 Sfirot Blima. 10 Sfirot, Blima means shut up. Kind of shut up. Why? Blom picha miladaber. Shut your mouth from speaking. Shut your heart. Uvelibcha milaher. Shut your heart from thinking. V'imratz picha ledaber. Velibcha me'aher. If your mouth runs to speak and your heart runs to think, shuv lamakom, go back. And what does it mean? In order to reach the source of the 10 Sefirot, in order to reach that place of true enlightenment, you need a moment of total silence. There's no noise, there's no fear, there's no thinking, there's no speaking, there are no ideas. You have to come to a place of complete silence. Only when you come to that complete silence, you can step up, you can ascend to that place that is called Atika Kadisha. And therefore, the real miracles that are coming from beyond. There are miracles that are basically coincidences. Oh, the chance that will be one of the million, 1 in a trillion. Still, you can explain it with the laws of physics and probability. Here we are talking about that Kriyat Yam Suf, the splitting of the Red Sea, Nimshecha mi Mazala sheyisod adikna kadisha. The splitting of the Red Sea came from that place that is coming when that light of Atik starts to flow down. It's called Mazala. It's also called the holy beard of the creation. Okay? What is Mazala? Mazala is a very important step in a spiritual enlightenment, in a true, real spiritual enlightenment. Sometimes we realize, there are many legends saying when the Israelites were leaving Egypt, the angels came to God and said, God, just a second. What's the difference between them and the Egyptians? Both are deep into their selfish desires. Both are into negativity. Both are into hatred and noise. All of that noise that is the body consciousness. Why would the Israelites, how would they merit to be redeemed? Sometimes, if you go into, do I deserve God's love? My answer will be no, I don't. So, if I will be judged exactly according to my actions, forget it. I will never feel that I deserve God's love. To reach a place of real enlightenment, you need to reach a place that we are talking about over here. A place, Vashem ilachem lachem vatem tacharishun. The verse before, chapter Exodus 14:14, God will fight for you and you will keep silent. After the prayer, after you awaken the prayer and the need and the desire and you really get closer to God, then comes a moment of complete silence. Complete trust that you allow God's light to come in because you connect to that place of God's will to share with you. It's a moment of you don't judge, you don't think, you don't talk to yourself. You have one thing in mind. You're connecting to the desire of the Creator to share with you his light. And you bring yourself as a vessel to receive his light the way he wants to give it to you. The meditation for that, Mazala, is numerical value 78, which happens to be 3 times 26. 26 is Youdkevitch. But when you meditate on Youdkevitch 3 times, which is called on one hand the name of 12 letters, because you have 12 letters over here. But you meditate on these 12 letters as one. How can you do that? When you come to silence, it's okay. The 12 become 1. That 1, Echad, Gematria, numerical value 13. It's 12, and when all of them become 1, it's 13. And these are the 13 attributes of the holy beard of God. What God is a beard? When the supreme head of the light of that atik, when it comes down, it comes as 13 white threads of light. That's called the 13 attributes, which means somehow when it starts to illuminate, when we connect to that level, it can only be through total silence. When I don't have the argument, I'm right, I'm wrong, I'm this, I'm that. No, I'm just willing to connect to God's will, to share with me. Whatever he shares with me, I don't judge it. I'm not expecting anything. I'm just expecting to receive his light to take me wherever he wants. Only then you can change the rules of the universe. And here, the sea that is made of water, H2O, they freeze under 0 centigrade and they boil above 100 degrees centigrade. Suddenly, the water, H2O, behaved differently. Why? The moment the Israelites connected to God's love towards them, they were not into the noise, we deserve it, we don't deserve it, we are miserable, we are poor. The fathers are protecting us, nothing. There's no way that God is going to throw me under the bus. There's no way that God is going to leave me just without. He's going to continue with his plan, and I'm following the way he does it. So one of the meditations to connect to the Mazala is a meditation of the 3 names of God, but meditating on the 12 letters and trying to bring them as one. And at the same time, connect not to my desire. It's like, it's not a shopping list. I want a soulmate. I want the health. I want money. I want to live somewhere else. I want this thing. I was that. No. I want to receive what God wants to give me. And I know he wants to give me his own light. How would that manifest? I don't care. I don't think about it. I just want to connect to that. That's what the Israelites did after they prayed. The second stage was reaching that place. The next stage was they found themselves walking on the sea, crossing the sea in safety, and the Egyptians drowning in front of their eyes. Did they plan? Did they plan? No. When we have that acceleration, ascension to God's will, we don't judge, we're silent. That is silence we're talking about. How do we achieve that silence? And there comes the next story, which is called the 72 names of God. It says that Moses used the 72 names to split the Red Sea. But we just realized to split the Red Sea, they had to connect to Atika Kadisha, to the Mazala. From there, they got that light that made everything possible. Against logic, against science, against anything. Okay? Against the odds and against probabilities. So, how do you get that? The 72 names are an amazing, intense tool to achieve that level. And that's why it says in Midrash Rabbah Bereshit, Parasha Memdalet, Parasha 44. The promise that God gave to Abraham, inside that word Ya'avodu, they will be enslaved to, you have the numbers Ayin Bet 72. הבטיח הקדוש ברוך הוא לאברהם אבינו שהוא גואל את בניו ושהם יעשו תשובה גואלם ב-72 אותיות. God said, promised Abraham, he will redeem his children from the place of their slavery, and they will be using the 72 names. And when Rabbi Amar Rabbi Yudan, מלבוא לקחת לו גוי מקרב גוי, when it says take, it's in Deuteronomy chapter 4, to take a nation from within a nation. That promise, there are 72 letters over there. Rabbi Avin Amar, Bishmo Ge'alan, with the name of God, he redeemed them. That the name of God has 72 letters. Here we're talking about 72 letters times 3. I'll continue to explain. Rashi, the great commentator on the Torah and the Talmud, he speaks about a very famous prayer, Hoshana. During Sukkot, we do circle the synagogue with the lulav, and we say in that prayer, Ani vaho Hoshia na. Ani vaho Hoshia na. Most Jews who even know Hebrew, you ask them, what does it mean, ani vaho? They don't know what's vaho, shiana. Okay? However, Rashi says, we're talking about the 11th century. Rashi says in Tractate Sukkah in the over the Talmud, page 45a, ani vaho, gematria, ana Hashem, numerical value, ana, please God. No, ana Hashem, gematria 78. 78. 78 is the Mazala. But that's supposed to be 72. I don't understand. Ve'od, mi-72 Shemot. These the names Ani and Vaho, these two names of God, they are two from the 72 names of God. And they are, you can find them in the 3 verses in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verses 19, 20, and 21. Okay? Those 3 verses, each one of them has 72 letters. And if you write them one straight and one backward, one straight, you get 72 columns of 3 letters each. Vaho is the first one of the 36 of the first, and then you can divide them into different groups, but the one division is divided into 2 groups of 36, 2 halves. The first one is Vaho, and the first one of the second group is Ani. Pray, when you pray and you need salvation and you need help, and you say, and you can't meditate on all 72 names, you meditate on Ani Vaho. Ani Vaho take you to Mazala. They take you to that place that the light of God can bring you salvation without considering your merits and all other logical issues. It's connected to God's will, nothing to do with our will. Okay? And says Rashi, and we know that these are holy names of the 72 names. Okay? And we know, everybody who knows the usage of the names, this is the 11th century. Officially, Kabbalah has not been revealed yet. And we know the holy name of 72, it's been divided in few parts, and each part with different vowels have different powers. And it's good if we mention them inside our prayers, and we focus on them and meditate, because by this, we can receive mercy from the Creator. And we can have all kinds, love and bringing the exiles. These are all stuff that we can receive from the using of the 72 names. This is said by Rabbi Bachya ben Hashem, also 11th century, around the time of Rashi. So here we're speaking about the 72 names. They're part of the names of God, which means all the Torah. I just mentioned this 10 plagues. If you look at them carefully, according to the Arizal, you will see in the 10 plagues all the names of God, which means everything in Kabbalah sees the names of God. This is basically the code of the creation. So when you use the names, you access the code. And that is a very important thing. So we understand that when we use the names of God, not as, we calling God, we're using the names of God. And names of God are basically, the whole Torah is the names of God. Initials, combinations, mathematical, it's all there. Basically, we're talking about the codes of how this universe is wired and planned and programmed. So if we want to align ourselves with the universe using the names of God, as we learned from the beginning of the book of Exodus, it's part of the growth. So when we see, as Rabbi Azar Kluya says, when we see an animal, it is a combination of the names of God that bring that animal to behave and to be whatever it is. And that in the physical level. But what about the time dimension? Every day is a different as sequences of the names of God. Every holiday, Shabbat, it's all sequences. It's all the same. Today, it's easy for us to understand because we realize that if we look at the system, like whoever, the matrix, and the idea for the matrix came from the book of formation. It's all about the names of God. The question is right now, how do we make this liftoff? How do we humans make this liftoff above the noise and above the logic and above, because who can say he's so pure, he deserves a miracle? Who can say he made enough work in order to be able to connect to the pure light of the Creator? No one can say that. Whoever says it, he's lying to himself, first of all, to himself. So we know there's a big thing in the Zohar that, yes, if you read the Talmud, then Talmud explains the Torah as a set of rules, and you have to follow the rules. But if you study the Talmud and you learn about all of these rules, you realize, like, it's impossible. There's no way logically that I can really apply to all of these rules. Yes, I need to apply to the rules as a way of living, as part of bringing myself to that place, that from that place I make that liftoff. As I say many times, an airplane is a great example. That two means of communication that an airplane has, wheels and wings. There's no way you can get from point A to B with wheels. There will be a disaster. The wheels are there just for the takeoff. So the system of logic and keeping the rules is just to bring us to a place of liftoff. And that liftoff, suddenly we fly. And a lot of people have this moment, they're looking at the airplane flying, tons and tons with hundreds of people, and say, this is impossible. How could that fly? Okay? And so majestically, we're talking about ourselves. How can we get close to God? We need to use the wheels, the logic, the cause and effect, the rules of keeping ourselves righteous and pure and positive and so on, and do our best. But that will never bring us to perfection. Only when we reach that place of liftoff, that is bringing ourselves to complete silence, and then happens the liftoff, connecting to the Mazala, and then we can connect to the real flow of light to the universe. Mazala in Hebrew is the word mazal, but wrongly it's translated into luck, like good luck. But it's coming from the Hebrew word nozel, flow, which means all the flow of life force in this universe starts from there. So when we reach that place without any limitation, just silently, with a complete silence of complete faith, then we awaken a regeneration. And then everything is possible for reaching the next level. And that's basically the need to reach the quantum leap in which we can really transform ourselves. But that's a big secret. Now, how do we reach that place of silence? The 72 names is one of the major tools, as it used to be in the splitting the Red Sea. So here we have the 3 verses of Vayisa Malach Elokim. Haolech, that verse, first of all, the top verse is verse 19, chapter 14 in Exodus. Vayisa Malach Elohim haolech lifnei machanei Yisrael, vayelech machareim, vayisa amud הענן mipneim, vayamod machareim. It speaks about the angel of God traveled in front of the camp, and he went behind them, and then he traveled. Then the pillar of cloud. It's kind of nonsense. You see, there's a code over here. And then Vayavo ben Machane Mitzrayim ben Machane Israel. That's verse 20. And he came between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel, and there was a cloud and darkness that shined through the light. And they did not approach each other during the light. And then verse 21, Vayet Moshe et yado al hayam, and Moses took his hand over the sea with his staff. ויולך השם את הים ברוח קדימה, זה כל הלילה, וישם את הים לחורבה, ויבקעו המים, and God brought a dry wind, and then the water has been split. Okay, and when you write them, these 3 verses in this kind of a matrix, okay, and so the first verse, you see above, the first verse, you see it in the yellow letters. Here's Va, you see Va'isa, Va'yisa. Okay, that's the first letter of each box. This is the first verse. Okay, and that's written from right to left. The second verse. Now it is Vayavo ben Machane Mitzrayim ben Machane Israel. This is written from the back, from left to right, because why 3 verses? Right, left, and center. Right was right to left, left from left to right. So here's from left to right. Now we're looking at the second letter in each box, and you see here the Vav of Vayavo, then Yud Bet Aleph, Vayavo, Bein, Mal, Machane, Mitzrayim, and you see the whole verse will be now from the back to the front. Okay, and now the third verse, Vayet Moshe et Yado, that's the third letter in each box, and that's the third verse. And you see here, Vayet, Vayet Moshe et Yado, and it goes on like this to the end of the box. So this combination of 72 words, 70 names, has been used for centuries in amulets for protection. Okay, this is from the 18th century, was found in Jerusalem. Okay, it could be used, that's from Germany, 17th century. Okay, and here you can see 2 sides. One of them has all the 10 names of God, and the Sefirot, and the Ana Bekoach, and so many names, but the back one, you can see the 72 names in a circle. Okay, now you can see it better. With the archangels, whatever, that was used in Jewish history for many, many years. But as we said, again, we are connected to it, we are meditating on it, we're scanning it, and there are many ways of meditation, but the simplest way to meditate is when you're in trouble and you need to get out of that place and you need the takeoff. You need to achieve silence. And how do you achieve silence? One of the simple ways is simply to, in your mind, to sit down in a meditative state with a candle or without it. And now go through the 72 names, and in your mind, just read the names of the letters. Okay? Vav, Hey, Vav, Yud, Lamed, Yud, Samech, Yud, Tet, Ayin, Lamed, Mem, Mem, Hey, Shin. And to go through all 72 names and again and again and again, while you're internally praying to reach that silence of connecting to Mazala, connecting to what is God? What does God want to give me right now? I don't want judgment. I don't want to tell God what to do. I don't want I have no idea what I need to do. I want to know, just to connect to God's will, which is perfectly loving, sharing with me. Okay? When we do that, again and again with the 72 names, we can reach that Mazala and achieve that miracle of self-transformation. And suddenly, you don't need to be in that place of silence more than a little bit. Because the moment we achieve that place of silence, the light of God comes in and you know what to do. Nobody needs to tell you. You don't need anybody's opinions and not even yours. If you look in the Kabbalistic writings, there are two major names that repeat in most places. The other names are not so much spoken about. One of them is the Kaf Hey Tav. Kaf Hey Tav is the 8th name. You can find it in the chart in the top left corner. And that you can find it in many places, but in Psalms, you have that verse in Psalms 150, okay, verse 6, Kol haneshama tehaleliyah, hallelujah. Every soul will praise God, hallelujah. Okay, the initials of Kol haneshama tehalel, Kaf Hey Tav. Okay, the initials of the beginning of the verse, the first three words, Kol haneshama tehalel, every soul will praise, that is Kaf Hey Tav. In kol neshima or neshima tehaleliyah, in every breath. That's why it's a hint that some say that if you breathe one breath before saying each one of the names of the letters, Vav, Hey, Vav, just with trying to praise God with your mind and with your body and with everything that you own. Lefisha Shem hazeh ha'inayim shel mala. Since this name is the eyes of the above, I'm reading from the writings of Rabbi Isaac Luria the Arizal, the gate of the sages and about Tractate Shabbat. B'Shem hazeh, with this name, Kaf Hey Tav, hayu hagdolim habitim b'eineim barshaim, the great sages would look at the wicked, ve'osim otam gal shel atzamot, and make from them a pile of bones. If there was a wicked person who will really bring a lot of damage, they could just look at him, make him a pile of bones. From what? Using the Kaf Hey Tav. Uvashem hazeh, with this name, hika Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom et hamitzri. With this name, Moses hit the Egyptian. Remember, when he was 40, he comes out to see his brothers. He sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, and he killed him. With that name, he killed him. The next day, he sees a Hebrew beats another Hebrew. The Hebrew was beating his friend. His name was Datan. And he says to him, Lama takerecha, why would you hit your friend? רוצה לומר, meaning, milat taf take, beat, is the same letters of Kaf Hey Tav, different order, but the same power. What was the answer of the Hebrew of Datan? Halargen itamer, you're going to kill me with a saying like you killed the Egyptian. Which means Moses realized everybody knows he killed the Egyptian, and he killed him with a holy name. Since then, we know that the name Kaf Hey Tav is to destroy enemies, or at least to destroy their damage. And you can find that also in every Sephardic prayer book, in the one blessing before the end of the Amidah prayer, it says, Baruch ata Hashem atov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. You see that the last three words, they finish with the last letter of each one of them is marked with these three dots. Kaf, Hey, Tav. And it says in parentheses, Yechaven samech sofei tovot Kaf Hey Tav. You should meditate on the last letters, which are Kaf Hey Tav. In other prayer books, it says that's good for protection, which means when you feel bullied and attacked with your own emotions or with somebody else's violence, use Kaf Hey Tav in order to bring in the light of the Creator to eliminate the negativity. Another one that is very famous, that you can find in the book Pri Etz Chaim, from the writings of the Arizal, about the reading of the Sefer Torah, chapter 5. In Psalms 29, Hashem lababul yashav. God sat on the plague, on the flood. Initials, Yud Lamed Yud. V'Shem Kadosh Elayim Bet. This is one name of the 72 names. And he speaks about the 72 names. You can divide them also to 6 groups corresponding to 6 planets. And it doesn't speak about 7th. And each one of them, there's 12. In each one of the 6 groups, there are 12 names corresponding to the 12 signs. Therefore, the second sign is hinted by, which is Taurus, and it's being hinted by Yud Lamed Yud, which is the second name. Okay? ולכן בכוח זה עשו העגל. They use Yud Lamed Yud to make the golden calf. However, you can use it to raise souls that fell into the dark side. And that's why when we say Hashem Lamabul Yashar, when we sing in Kabbalat Shabbat and other places at Psalms 29, Mizmor David, Psalms for David, Hashem Lamabul Yashav, that you should meditate on lifting sparks from within the dark sides, that you cannot lift them using even the name of 42 letters, Dana Bekoach. And this name is lifting them from Olam Asiyah. So how do we use it? As we said, first of all, if you have the chart of the 72 names, meditate on it every day. And if you really committed to your spiritual journey and for your spiritual transformation, and you meditate on the 72 names, then you want to reach that place of total silence that you can allow God's light, the Atika Kadisha, that is the will just to share with you, to come in and give you your next level. We also have in this parasha the song of the Red Sea. And you see over here how the song is written in the Torah. You see the top paragraph and the bottom paragraph, they are the normal way that the Torah is written on the parchment. But you see that the song itself, as Yashir Moshe, is written with a lot of spaces. The song, it shows there's a lot of light being revealed over there because the white on the parchment symbolize the light of God. The letters are in black because these are the vessels to reveal the light of God. You have to realize also when it says, as Yashir Moshe, it says, and then in the future, Moses and the children of Israel are going to sing, which all of this song was sung in order to reveal to us and give us power to go through all the way to the end of the correction. Okay? And after that, we have a few other issues. We have the healing. I won't put on you, over you, any more diseases. If you connect, and again, it's a name of God, you have the name of God, Youdkevitch, spelled out with Yudim. And that's with the 4 Yuds. That's a secret of healing. Okay, but also it says you have to follow the rules. You have to be committed to it. Okay. That you can find also after this, and that's in the story that after they sing of the song of the Red Sea, they come to a place there's no water and the water are bitter. Now what about they're bitter? And then God shows Moses a tree. What's a tree? The tree of life, of course. When you connect to the tree of life, you can transform bitterness into sweet, judgment into mercy. Okay? And then you can heal any disease. That's verse 26 in chapter 15. Okay? And now we have the manna. And the manna, it's all about, if you go to the Zohar, Parashat BeShalah, verse 372, and it says, V'tachazeh, come and see. Kol yoma v'yoma, every day, natif talam atika kadisha, there's dew coming down, dripping from Atika Kadisha. Le Zeranpin, to Zeranpin, to the level that we can experience God spiritually. Umidbarchan kol chakal tapuchin kadishin, and all the physical world, the Shekhinah is being blessed and being watered with that bliss. Me'ut tala, from that dew, that flow of spiritual liquid, okay? And that liquid is what the Israelites ate in the desert, the manna. What's in it for us? So, verse 386. And when we do that, when we really connect to that spiritual manna, אז נמצא הקדוש ברוך הוא מלא ברכות בכל יום, then God is full of blessings every day. Who does that depend on? On our belief systems. ואז כתוב, then it says in Psalms, פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכל חי רצון. Open your hands and satiates every living thing, his needs. That's the simple translation. But what's the word ratzon? The Zohar is asking, what is ratzon? What's a desire? Means no, we're talking about the will of the Creator to share from Atika Kadisha. That is Shehu Keter, which is Sfirat Keter. ויוצא ממנו רצון שנמצא מזון לכל. And from there, there's nourishment to feed all. מי שמבקש על מזון בכל יום ויום, הוא נקרא בנאמן. Therefore, we have to pray and ask for nourishment every day. However, we need to use that prayer in order to connect our minds and hearts and all our being to the Mazala, to the upper Ratzon, the will of the Creator to share. When we connect to the will of the Creator to share, He will fulfill our desire to receive His way. When you do that every day, you're being called the loyal son of God. A son that because of him, there are blessings from above nourishing the whole world. Because when we do that, when we pray for that nourishment, we make the whole tree of life full of bliss to everyone all over the world. That's some of the treasures of Parashat BeShalah, some of the amazing treasures that basically give us the true understanding of what true freedom is about. When you're not worried too much and you know always to ascend to that place that all bliss is coming from. Thank you so much and have a great week full of miracles, true, real miracles coming from the upper Mazala.